All right, so we are joined from Fredericksburg, Virginia by Ratisha Smith, the founder of Quad 22 Technologies and the Quad 22 Technology Foundation. Information technology professional, has a computer science resume that I will put up against just about anybody I've ever met. We're recording this for all of our computer science engineering students in Madison County schools at Shirley Simmons Middle School, Old Town Middle School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, Rosa Scott, and the Academic Options Center, and for our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, before we get into your computer science acumen, which is just amazing, and we can't wait to hear all about that. You are from South Florida,
Yes, I
from
am.
all from the Palm Beach area, before you got up into the DMV area. So take us through, growing up in South Florida, then going to a great HBCU at Florida A&M, and how that led to where you are now.
Okay, so I am from a small town called Pahokee, Florida, which is located in West Palm Beach County. Pahokee, Florida has a population of about 6,000 people, so it's very small and economically disadvantaged. However, we do have some pretty good, outstanding people who come out of Pahokee, Florida. We have a lot of football players that come from that area, some that are currently playing in the NFL right now. So that's where I actually came from, and some of them are my friends as well, who's played in the NFL. So why did I choose to take this route in information technology? Well, I was raised by my grandmother, who was a farm worker back in the days when she used to work in the for South Bay grows in that particular area. And as I mentioned before, it is an economically disadvantaged area. So I knew coming out of Pahokee that I wanted to do something that I can be able to rely on myself and not actually have to go back and rely on anyone to take care of me, but make enough money that I can be able to sustain the life that I want to live. So that what led me into studying and doing some research on the type of fields that I would want to go into. And though my passion was always in teaching, I chose computer science, and now I'm using what I've learned into computer technology to actually teach. So from Pahokee, Florida, I actually went to school at Florida A&M University on a music scholarship. I marched in Florida A&M University marching band, the Marching 100, and there is where I majored in computer information science. And so that's how I ended up in this field. After graduating Florida A&M University, I received a job offer to work for Lockheed Martin in the Washington, D.C. metro area. And from there, I started doing software development and programming in different programming languages. So
Yeah, and that's incredible in itself. So, for these young people that may not know, Lockheed Martin is probably the biggest government contractor of,
yes,
of military equipment,
yeah.
vehicles, weapons, satellites, all kind of stuff. So talk a little bit about, and that's amazing to even be considered to work there. So talk a little bit about how that technology works and the skills you took from college going into a professional job like that, because that's an extremely important job.
Well, one of the things about IT, if we look around, we notice that you will find computer software everywhere. So I am a computer programmer by trade. Whether or not you're working on missiles, you're working in airplanes, your watch that is on your arm, the computer that we're looking into right now, the clock that's on the wall, all of those different type of devices have what we call some form of programming or software that is installed. So when you get into companies like Lockheed Martin, I've also, worked for other companies. I had a job offer with Microsoft, BAE Systems, some of the big government contracting companies. So when you look at those companies, they're always developing things for DoD, whether or not it's missiles, airplanes, all of those particular machinery type of things that has software on it. So they hire a lot of computer programmers. The demand for computer programmers is tremendously great. So I decided, instead of taking more of the business aspect of my degree, I decided to just stick with computer programming. And so I was assigned to work on some projects that I can't really talk about. But I was responsible for developing some of the applications or the software that got installed in some of these missiles and airplanes and things that we see today. So I was responsible for developing software that for those. Uh, I'm sorry. I was responsible for developing software that are being installed on the different on different devices, whether or not it's missiles, whether or not it's radio devices. I'm just trying to make sure that I stay within the bounds of what I can actually.
I understand. And you also work at the Pentagon with the Department of Defense, which is again just such an important aspect. And while you did focus on the government side of things, we had a speaker from a bank last week or earlier this week that said even in banking and in hospitals, these IT pros, there's not enough people to fill the jobs because businesses are going more and more technology based. The day of the manual laborer is getting smaller and smaller. And here we have a large manufacturing area here in Middle Mississippi, and they're more worried about finding people that can operate machines than they are people that can work a screwdriver.
Right, right. And it's kind of the way of the world now. As I mentioned before, everywhere you look, you're going to see something that is being operated by computers. No matter what it is you touch, your lights in your house, the buses that the kids go home every day on, everything is being operated by computers. So the need for computer programming, computer programmers is pretty much great. I think I know in my region right now, sometimes when I look at the job rates, we have close to over 100,000 jobs and that are available, and they need computer programmers and they need people who are within the United States that are, a U.S. citizen just to be able to program, and we don't have too many of those that exist.
Yeah, and I know, and within your company, you said you were going to start looking for employees. A friend of the class, as a friend of mine here in Mississippi, he works for the Mississippi Department of Finance. He does not know jack crap about finance, but he runs their software and he runs their server, and he straight up says that server cannot go down. And he was talking about employees in IT. He said right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he said right now they're more worried about having somebody that has a current certification than they are somebody that has a degree. Because the 19-year-old that has a certification from a community college has worked more with that technology. And also, they're looking to hire military people because they work with the technology in the Air Force, Space Force. It's not a combat job. They're getting a lot of technical training.
Yeah, that is true. I don't want to deter anyone who's have the I guess the drive to go to college. Yeah. Okay, so if someone want to go to college, I would say go to college. It's a great place to grow and learn yourself and learn who you are and know what it is that you actually want to do. But one thing I would say about the IT community, by the time you graduate with your degree in information technology, the technology is dated. So one of the things that I learned coming out of Florida University, by the time I graduated, I was like 3 to 4 years behind time because every day new technology hits the market, different type of programming languages hit the market. So you actually have to constantly be teaching yourself. And so I'll just speak for myself, if I could have taken a different route, I would probably have gone to get a certification, made sure after getting my certification, then I would just continue to get certified in different languages and different technologies. That probably would have been the route that I would have taken, even though both of my degrees, my bachelor's and master's degree, have gotten me pretty far in terms of being able to manage engineers and computer systems and build systems from the ground up. But just those practical hands-on experience that you would get when you're getting a certification would probably have been the route that I would have taken because I'm a computer programmer.
Yeah, and also, and again, I'm not deterring college either, but also if you want to do the college route, you could get that business background because like yourself, you have the technology skills, but you also have the business skills.
Yes.
So I want to talk about Quad 22, which is quite impressive because you have Quad 22 Technologies and the Quad 22 Foundation, which is your nonprofit. So we'll start on the Quad 22 Technologies, and we looked at the website, some of the things you guys do. And I gave the example to one of the young ladies here. If she wanted to open a hair business, but didn't know how to have any web design or user interface or even design a logo, that's where you guys would come in. So talk a little bit about how you do that for businesses.
Well, I would say my business is definitely transitioning. I actually talked to a developer yesterday about updating my website because the mission and what I'm actually doing is changing. But when I initially started, I started out as a web designer. So coming straight out of college, just trying to make money, wanting to be an entrepreneur. One of the things I was like, well, let me try to figure out how to do websites for people. And that's kind of where the start of Quad 22, it started. Now I've gotten into government contracting, which is a little bit different than just sitting up developing websites, because you're developing now application, you're maintaining government contracts, which is a little different. So we're kind of in a transition phase right now. And pretty soon my website is going to look different. But if someone wants to get into developing websites and how do you go about doing it and ensuring that you can get your product out, I'm definitely here. I can mentor anyone who has the desire to do that. But however, I am no longer in the market of taking clients to build websites. I do have people I I hire on and bring to do the work that I really trust, but currently I'm more so into the government space.
So we'll talk about that, because I'm actually curious about that. So, and obviously you can't divulge everything that you do with the
No,
government,
I can't.
but just theoretically, what would be an application that the government might need in a certain area?
Let me think. So one of the things that the government is trying to get better on is being able to, let me see. That is a hard question, because I'm thinking about the applications that I worked on. I know I really can't even talk about them.
Yeah.
So if I think about something that the government will probably need, let's just talk about COVID. Okay, so I think that that would be a good topic area that we are all familiar with, and we don't really want to go into any details or anything else. So with COVID, right? Once COVID first hit, the government had a very hard time being able to track who had COVID,
Ah,
who had passed away from COVID,
yeah.
your COVID contacts. They had a hard time being able to track who's came in contact with someone who had COVID. So if you notice, there was a lot of little applications that were popping up, applications popping up on your
Ah,
phone,
yeah.
some things popping up probably through your search engine to dictate how many people in your particular region have COVID. So the
Wow.
government will actually say, okay, this is a major pandemic. We need to be able to get a handle of it. We need to get the numbers. We need the statistical, the data, so we can be able to run type of analytic analytic reports. So they would bring in a company like myself and say, well, okay, how much experience do you have standing up a quick web application that would be able to collect this amount of data? We need to know who all has COVID. If somebody call in and say, okay, I have a positive COVID test, do an intake, take that data, put it in a large data set in some type of data center so that we can be able to run the matrix across the country. So that's kind of how they would utilize a company like myself.
I never thought about that, because yeah, there's a lot of data that has to be collected especially since COVID. So yeah, the government wants the information, but they got to have somebody to develop the software for that to happen. So that's
Exactly.
incredible. Now
Exactly.
your Quad 22 Foundation, I know, and we watched a little bit about that, and this just seems like an amazing thing you're doing there. Because you said you have a son with autism, and you wanted to provide him with opportunity to work in technology, to work in a job that would fit his skill set. And you're really you're really big on getting young people, not just with autism, but young people in any disadvantaged area involved in these engineering.
I am. So Quad 22 is foundation is kind of like that baby, that company that speaks more to my second love, which is teaching. I stood up Quad 22 Foundation right at the beginning of, right before the pandemic, as the pandemic started. And I had been teaching children how to program for quite some time using different type of tools like Scratch, Python, like some of the easy programming languages. And when my son, he's a junior now in high school, so I just started teaching him because he loves computers. However, he has a disability. And it was my hope that I'll be able to get a company that, or build a company that he'll be able to work for or provide some type of technical assistance to. So I utilized what I was doing with him to stand up Quad 22 Foundation. And that's where, and what we normally do for my foundation is really do a lot of virtual teaching children in disadvantaged areas on how to program, how to get into the technology field, because a lot of us don't realize that there's a lot of different countries are taking over the whole technology industry. And so if we don't get a handle of that and the need to have people in this industry, we're going to be so far. We are far behind, I'll tell you, for most companies, we're very far behind.
Yeah,
So
these young people here with me now watching later, the technology industry needs you. It is,
yeah.
you know, like we said, they have more jobs than they have people qualified. So
Right. And one of my goals with my foundation is to try to build, go into um, small cities, disadvantaged cities, and try to help build, give a skill set or build up their middle class by giving a skill set where people who want to live in that city don't have to move. They can be there and work remotely. So that's kind of like my overall goal in order to try to build up the middle class in some of the smaller cities.
wow, that is such a great idea. I mean, I really hope that comes to fruition. That's really good. But I do have some questions from the students, and
Okay.
some of these are really good. This is Jacayla Page. She's a sophomore, and she asked, when you were younger, were you familiar with technology?
I was not. I was not. Not at all. I mean, when I was younger, the only thing we had was the computers at school. Um, and that was it. So my dad was in the military. He was in the military. So my dad worked as um, a help desk engineer. I'm gonna call him a support desk engineer. So the only thing I knew was that he worked on computers, you know. He worked on computers. So someone is help desk, they come in and they try to help get your computer up and running, things like that. So that's all I knew, was that he worked on computers. So I just started, kind of doing some research and say, well, how much does computer people make? And and because I didn't want to be poor or anything like that, I just started to do research. And I'll also be honest with you, I'm a math person, so the way that I think is very analytical, and this particular field fit me pretty well.
Cool. And that's a great segue to this next question. This is Jaslyn Williamson. She's also a sophomore, and she asked, once you got into technology, did you ever want to quit? And what's the worst part of being in a technological field?
Ooh, that is a pretty good question. Do I want to quit? Um, I would say that, so just to be, I'm a realist, right? When you start programming takes a lot of your mental energy. So where someone would get up all day and probably go to school like you, or go to school and teach, Greg, um, it takes a lot of mental energy. So even though you're sitting at your desk and you're programming, you're thinking analytically all day long. It never stops. You're constantly almost psychoanalyzing the code that you're writing, trying to make sure that it works for your end user. So that can be very mentally taxing on you. And you have to have that just a desire to do it. You just have to. So I do get tired sometimes, especially when you run into code that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So anytime you run into some of your code that doesn't work, it kind of takes the energy out of you, because now you have to dig deeper to figure out, why doesn't this work? So
And you're always
those days I feel like quitting.
and new stuff comes out all the time. You got to learn stuff, constantly. It's not something
Yeah.
you just be setting your ways on, because
Right.
technology changes, you have to change as well. This is
Exactly.
Rebecca Baker. She's a junior, and she asked, who is your biggest inspiration as a computer engineer or as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, who is my biggest inspiration as a computer engineer? That is a great question. So I would say, and I have to say this, I think I have been my biggest inspiration as a computer engineer. So let me tell you why. When I got into this field, um, when you're in the technology field, you barely see any women in this field
Very true.
at all. Majority of the projects that I've worked on, I've been the only female um, for years on the project. And I'll take it a little step further, the only African American on the project. So it has been extremely hard sometimes for me as I've navigated through this field and created my own company, my own technology company, because you're just the only one. And then sometimes I get on projects with nothing but men, and God bless them. There's egos going left and right, left and right, left and right. So you have to learn, you have to learn to navigate through that. It's not like they came towards me. In some cases, there was like some contention between me and the opposite sex. However, we had to learn to how to get along. So it has been different. I would say I've been my biggest inspiration in this field. It's just I've developed the need to continue to push and to break barriers in this field. And I actually mentor a lot of female, like a lot of young ladies coming out of high school and trying to get them into the IT field because there's a need for us.
Yeah, and especially in the DMV area. I mean, that's probably the number one, other than, there in San Francisco, probably the two hottest tech places in the country right now.
It's everywhere, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
And Atlanta.
Atlanta,
Yeah.
Miami is growing, Tampa is growing, California, they're growing there. It's everywhere now.
Yeah. This is Aaliyah Chester. She's a junior, and she asked, "What do you feel is your biggest accomplishment?"
Ooh, my biggest accomplishment. Well, this is a little personal. I always say my biggest accomplishments are my children. Just being able to watch them grow. I have a 9-year-old who started programming at 7, and
Wow.
it's crazy how he's kind of taken after his mom, right? My daughter, she's more of the, I would say she's more of like the social butterfly. She loves flowers, and she's like 14 years old, and she like and she likes all the beautiful, artwork. And so what she fought me a couple of years, but now she's kind of into graphic design. She does a lot of the Adobe Animate
Wow.
Suite, so she's into computers, but from the graphical perspective, she designs her characters, she animate them. So they have been my biggest, I would say, accomplishment, because just watching them defy what most people from my area would do and just into the technology like me. I'm just very, very proud of them
That's incredible.
and proud of myself.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Adobe Suite. We actually have a Academy of Digital Media right here on campus where
Oh,
they
wow.
get the Adobe
Wow.
Suite certification.
Yes.
Yeah,
Where they can get certification in Adobe Suites. That's awesome.
never have to leave the building. It's right here on campus, right here in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we know all about rural here. This is the last one from the students. This is Catherine Johnson. She's a junior. And she asked, if you had not had a son with a disability, do you think you still would have started your foundation?
I think so. Because the foundation is more than just helping kids with special needs. So as I mentioned, I come from a very small town, like where you guys are from. Um, there was someone who pulled me aside and mentored me, right? I didn't make it out just on my own. So a lot of people like, I had to do all of this to make it. I didn't make it out on my own. Whether it was one teacher just say that you can do it, one teacher that says, or somebody say, Ratisha, get your head together. You want to make it out. You want to do great things in life. It was somebody who mentored me to take a different path. I guess the path that's least taken by most people from my hometown. And so I'm the one who would give back. So if someone give to me, I try to pass the torch and give back to somebody else. So whether I had a child with a disability or not, I was going to be in the field of mentoring. I totally believe that.
That's incredible. Well, we're almost out of time, but before we go, uh, first of all, it's amazing how humble you are because I've done my research. Your resume is I'll put up against anybody. But like you said, you're from a small rural area, just like we are. We're
Mhm.
a great, hardworking community. We're a majority Black community. I know Pahokee is majority Black and Hispanic community, but yet you have defied the odds, unlike anybody else, and done some amazing things. And we'll let you make it with your Florida A&M stuff, even though this is Jackson State territory. Um, and but it is a great HBCU there in Tallahassee. But
Yes.
these young people that are with me now and a lot that are watching later, they're going to face the same obstacles you faced as a Black girl in rural America. I guarantee you, they have way more resources than you had right there in South Florida now. So, what can
Mhm.
they do now when they are at the age, 15, 16, 17, some of them 13, 14, that'll see this later, to overcome these obstacles they're going to face?
Ask me the question again, because it seemed like it was a two-part question, so I'm
Well,
trying to
well,
make sure I
well,
answer.
well, being in the same type of environment now that you were in, what can they do to overcome those obstacles that you face coming out of that same environment?
What I would suggest to any young child that's listening to this video or getting a chance to see this interview is that you have to start now dreaming. You have to dream, what do I want my life to be in the next 5 years? Where do I want to be in the next 5 years? And the moment you start dreaming and writing things down, and say, well, I want to be a millionaire. And you have to continue to tell yourself, I want to be a millionaire. Then the next question is, how do I get there?
Yeah.
I want to be self-sufficient. I don't want to rely on mommy. I don't want to rely on daddy to take me. I don't want to be on drugs. I don't want to be selling drugs. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to be in jail. So if I don't want these things, what do I need to do to get to where I want to be? If I stand on a corner and I sell dope, will that get me there? So you have to be able to write down a path, develop a path for success. If you don't focus on that, trust me, if you don't have a plan, you will actually end up staying where you are if you don't have a plan. So when I was younger, my band director used to talk to me all the time about going to Florida A&M University, marching in the band, marching in the band, marching in the band. So I use that as my next target. So I've always set a target, or once I accomplish that, I set another target. I'm going to get a degree in computer science. I set another target. And to be honest with you, one of the things in my family, especially on my mom's side, no one actually had a degree. And
Wow.
so I wanted to be the first. And now all of my cousins, my young cousins, siblings, everybody is getting their degree. And now I started my company. Everybody is starting a company. So you have to be that beacon, that one thing that changes, the dynamics or the trajectory of your life and even your children's life. So, I mean, I can go on and on about this, but you just have to be able to have constantly dream and set goals and small enough milestones to reach so you can stay on the path to success.
Yeah, and just because you're the first at something doesn't mean you can't be the best at it.
Exactly.
But again, thank you so much for joining us all the way up there, Fredericksburg, Virginia. Tell us where to find Quad 22 Technologies online.
www.quad22tech.com.
All right. So again, thank you so much for joining us, Ratisha Smith. Great talking to you. I'll talk to you soon.
Nice talking to you as well. Bye.